Hi, this is Tony Bellamy. Welcome to J. Coolin, where hip hop meets bebop and bebop meets hip hop in the many flavors of jazz. Hopefully, all you guys are doing well. It's been a while since I've been on done a podcast. The last podcast I did was 50 years of club to house music and Cool Herc, which was quite a great show. It was an interesting show, and showing you the history of house music and how it involved Cool Herc and hip hop, and the ties of it within New York City between Frankie Knuckles and Larry Levan. But that was another show. Okay, on today's show, we're paying tribute. We're going to discuss focusing on jazz. And we do that on J. Coolin with the many flavors of jazz. And on today's show, we pay tribute to the great saxophonist, visionary composer, and bandleader, Wayne Shorter. And for those of you that don't know Wayne Shorter, you're going to find out. It's going to be an interesting show about how Wayne Shorter became a musician. I'm jumping ahead of myself, but just stick in there with me, and you're going to find out some really great things about the great Wayne Shorter. Wayne Shorter was born August 25th, 1933, and older brother Alan was born May 29th, 1932, to Joseph and Louise Shorter in Newark, New Jersey, not too far from here, from where I live. And the Shorter's mother, Louise, was a very nurturing mom. Both of the parents were really, and particularly Louise, his mother, introduced both boys to creative pursuits like working with clay, creating little clay armies and ships, and exploring comic books and listening to radio programs, dramas, horror shows, comedy. Because that's what you did back in the 40s, okay? And you played outside in the fields where Alan and both Wayne played, and simply put, using their imagination. This imagination was what led Wayne to his career as a musician. As you hang in there and listen to the incredible biography and stories behind Wayne Shorter's experiences of his life, and doing that with no fear. Wayne at one time was even a singer. He could sing as well. And that would be used in his unique voice when he becomes a musician, creating a melody that was all Wayne. In Wayne's life as a child, up to his teenage years, the Shorter brothers were interested only in movies and radio's mysteries, such as Mysterious Traveler. Now, that's going to come up. And as a child, Mysterious Traveler was a show where you heard about mysteries, adventures and science fiction. So that's what you did in the 40s. You gathered with your family and listened to shows. And also as a child, the Shorters attended services at Mount Zion Baptist Church, okay? And this church had an outstanding choir, as usual African-American churches have. But this one was really outstanding. They had a silky smooth teenage singer by the name of Sarah Vaughan. Now, she wasn't silky smooth, but that's what we'll describe her. She would become. Sarah Vaughan was 9 years older than Wayne, and if you ask the Shorter brothers, did they remember the sermon? They would say they couldn't say, but that choir was happening. While in high school, we jump ahead. While in high school, Wayne's world changed. Wayne's world when he discovered his father's favorite show, the Make-Believe Ballroom. Now, the Make-Believe Ballroom was a radio show that came on Saturdays, and it was with Martin Block, the host. And that particular evening, on a Saturday, a new kind of music he wanted to talk about, and it was called bebop. He heard on the radio, Wayne and his brother, the music of Thelonious Monk, Dizzy Gillespie, and sparking his passion for jazz. He never heard this incredible music. He said, wow, what is this, man? And so much that Wayne went from, you go from 0 to 100, okay? You get so excited about it. So Wayne said, wow, he loved the music so much that he would skip school. Now, he never skipped school. He was not a bad child. He was an excellent student. But he would go to the matinees performances that were in Newark, New Jersey. See Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker, and Count Basie. Now, Newark, if you don't know, is a real African-American town with Southern roots. Many Southerners from North Carolina, Alabama, Texas, lived in Newark, New Jersey at that time, and still do. Okay, still do. But as I said, let me not digress. Wayne was skipping school, and his mom found out. Teachers told, and so he was brought in. And Wayne's punishment for missing school led him to a class on music theory. So you love it so much? Oh, okay. Well, what we're going to do is that we're going to have you go to class on music theory. Okay. Now that was real exciting for Wayne. I can imagine he's saying, "Hey man, I wanted to, I was interested in jazz, but instead he gets this class on music theory." All right. So, he takes this up, even though he was interested in Thelonious Monk and everything. But he no longer wanted to do this. He didn't want this punishment that he was getting. He no longer wanted to just listen. He felt the urge to play music for himself. Now, he hadn't played any music. He was not a musician. He had no formal lessons. Okay, so his mother, being the doting mother that she was, she brought Wayne a clarinet. So he took lessons studying classical music. Now, this is not the usual music route that you take growing up. And now he's in high school. Okay. In high school, this is going on, all right? But Wayne was so tuned into the sounds of jazz, and particularly Lester Young, the Prez. Ultimately, he said, man, I can't play the clarinet. I've got to play this bebop and the saxophone. So during high school, Wayne and his brother formed their own band. They've taken lessons and everything all along, too. And they got their own name, Alan was called Doc Strange, and Wayne was Mr. Weird. Okay, that's going to come along and haunt Wayne later on because of his kind of quirky personality. Now, this is all in high school. This is going on, all right? Things are really moving. So at the age of 17, 1951, Wayne garnered such acclaim within the jazz community in Newark. He was winning band competitions, showcasing his exceptional skill and playing fast. And he was nicknamed the Newark Flash because he was emulating the style of Charlie Parker, Charlie Bird Parker. Look him up if you don't know. I'm not going to go back and forth, but Charlie Parker is probably the greatest musician in music and jazz, okay, I would say, being one of the leaders of inventing this music along with Dizzy Gillespie at Minton's, in case you want to know, okay. But I digress. Wayne's musical journey continued, okay. He's playing all over. So while in high school, still in high school, was invited to play at Lloyd's Manor, a famous jazz club in Newark, New Jersey, where he was noticed by tenor saxophonist Sonny Stitt. And Sonny Stitt listened to him and said, "Hey, man, young buck, hey, man, listen, hey, you want to play in my group? I'll take you." But Wayne had other interests. He said, "Listen, I intend to go to college." And, he was impressed with Wayne looking and sounding like Charlie Parker, the Newark Flash. So, but he told me he was going to NYU. So Wayne was that, he was that good of a student, that he was accepted by NYU, New York University, in Manhattan, in Greenwich Village. So Sonny encouraged him to attend, and he was going to major in composition and theory. But before he attended college, Wayne had to work for a year. So he didn't have a scholarship or anything like that. He had to work his way a year as a stock clerk to save money to attend NYU. And he started NYU in 1952, okay? Wayne's music education would begin as an music education major, and explored, when he was in NYU, the local jazz scene, which was Birdland and Cafe Bohemia, and playing in various bands in New York City and around Newark. So while in college, Wayne is now starting. He's got this music education. He's playing with various bands. He's known as the Newark Flash, and he's writing his own tunes. He begins to start composing his own tunes. Now, during this time, in the 1950s, there was the mambo craze of Cuban music, Afro-Cuban music and dancing that was just going on in New York City. And New York City was the land of mambo. Okay, so Wayne gets to write a tune. He writes a tune called Midget Mambo, and he gets a gig to open up for Tito Puente at the Palladium in 1955. Now, if you don't know anything about the Palladium, it was the headquarters, the mecca of dance, okay, in Latin music in 1955 in Manhattan. So, Wayne is, still in college, writes this incredible tune and blows the audience away, opens up for Tito Puente. Now, this is just mind-boggling that Wayne is doing all this and moving at such a fast pace from high school into college and just, making things happen. And by the way, Wayne finally, he's been working and gigging at the same time, gets his scholarship, his senior year. But that money still wasn't enough. And Wayne had to gig his way, work his way by hustling and to make ends meet and doing gigs. So there's a lot going on for Wayne Shorter. But he's convinced this is what he wants to do. He wants to become a jazz musician. So he's graduating from NYU in 1956 with a degree in music education, his formal education. But it was the clubs where Wayne got his jazz education. I'm going to say that one more time. Wayne got his formal education, music theory and education major at NYU, but he got his jazz education in the clubs, and that was at Cafe Bohemia and Birdland. And Wayne sought new challenges to make his modern music, the bebop music was called the modern music, by the way, style, happen by composing and arranging his own tunes. And it was during this time that Wayne was influenced by tenor saxophonist Stan Getz, or came up with this new thing that was coming on. It was called the West Coast Sound. Now, the sound Stan Getz was playing was velvet and whispering. It was this new sound that Stan Getz supposedly invented, but it was actually Lester Young, the Prez, and that invented this sound, this innovative sound that Stan Getz even admitted his influence was Lester Young himself. And Miles Davis even agreed that Stan Getz' sound was all Prez. And Wayne Shorter agreed as well. He was a fan of Stan Getz, and Lester Young was yelling on the sideline saying, "Hey man, that's all me." But he wasn't receiving the credit. He was just getting little claps, aka applause. That was Lester Young's way of language in jazz. I'm just getting these little claps, but I'm not getting the money. So there was a lot happening, and he wasn't happy about it. So Wayne influence, as he thought, many people said that he was influenced by the great Lester Young. And he said, I acted like where the sound of Lester would come, but I wasn't influenced by Lester. So he was saying, I acted the sound of Lester in some point in whatever that tune was, but he was not influenced by Lester. But once again, so just to make that distinction, okay? So just keep up with me. But once again, there was a delay. Wayne is trying to move ahead and really get into the swing of things. And once again, there was a delay in Wayne's music career. He was drafted in the Army, okay? And so Wayne had to go and, do a stint in the Army, as most people had to do at that time. And he became an excellent soldier. He became a sharpshooter. Like anything that Wayne got into, he went into it all the way. All right. So Wayne was an excellent, he was a sharpshooter. In case you messed around, you found out real quick who Wayne Shorter was, But it was funny though. Here was Wayne in the army. He's not really playing his music, but he gets a 10-day furlough to go to Toronto. So he wants to check out a jazz club, and it's called the Tavern, and it's in Toronto. And guess who's playing there? But Lester Young, the Prez. And yes, Lester Young spots Wayne in the crowd. Now, is that a coincidence? I don't know, but I guess he had heard about Wayne. So they have drinks together, and Wayne says he couldn't remember the conversation. He said, I met Lester Young, but what does that mean? So, but if I was Wayne, he was a young man at the time. He was, what that meant, he was recognized by the Prez, Lester Young, and he wanted to talk to him about, where his head is and what's he doing with his music, and anything that he could possibly point out to him. But that was recognition of Wayne's talent, and this would happen again to Wayne on the way up in his music career when he meets the great Bud Powell in France. Now I'm going ahead a little bit, but we're gonna all tie this all together. What does that mean? He meets Bud Powell when he was filming the movie Around Midnight. And if you ever saw that movie, I would tell you to check it out. It had some of the top jazz greats in there: Herbie Hancock, Wayne Shorter, John McLaughlin, quite a few people. And there was a fictionalized musician in there that was about Lester Young and the life of Bud Powell. A combination this fictionalized movie was about. But, I'm saying a lot and I'm jumping around, okay? But I want you to keep focused and understand what I'm saying. But I want you to understand how Wayne was recognized by jazz greats on, unbeknownst to Wayne, of why he was because they saw him as this new star in the modern music or bebop. And after a brief stunt, now, by the way, this happened a third time too. Wayne comes back, after meeting Bud Powell in France with the Art Blakey band, and at a party, and he meets this young lady, and they become friends, and she meets him in the park, and she gives him some of the personal documents or things that were owned by the great Charlie Parker. Now she recognized him as somebody that Charlie Parker would want this. She recognized his greatness. Now, I know this sounds kind of convoluted and sounds kind of crazy, but these things actually happened. And, it was even said in the biography of Wayne's book called Footprints, The Life and Work of Wayne Shorter. And Wayne, even states that this happens as crazy as it may sound. He's recognized by the people that, close to Charlie Parker. He's recognized by Bud Powell, and he's recognized by Lester Young. Okay, so this is all going on, as his career starts to move ahead. So he's out of the army now. Wayne's playing with Horace Silver, Freddie Hubbard, and Sonny Rollins, and it was pianist Horace Silver who advised Wayne to own his music. He said, you need to own the publishing rights to your music, and you'll always have some kind of royalties coming in, which Wayne did, remembering what happened to Lester Young, who died penniless, unfortunately. So it also paid off for Horace Silver. When hip hop artists started sampling his music, the royalty checks that he was getting was more money than he ever made while he was with Blue Note Recordings. So it was a business decision that worked out for Horace Silver as well as for Wayne Shorter. So in 1959, as we move ahead, trumpeter Lee Morgan invites Wayne to join the Jazz Messengers, led by drummer Art Blakey. And that same year, Wayne released his debut album, and you can look it up, Introducing Wayne Shorter, and composed many tunes such as African, which was on the Art Blakey album, and Lester Left Town, which was excuse me, which was on, mixture. One was on Lester Left Town. It was on Art Blakey album. Sorry, let me not digress. But Lester Left Town was a tune, a tribute to Lester Young, who had passed away, and unfortunately not in the best of ways. Financially, all right. So it was something that worked out for Lester, that worked out for Wayne, being pushed and being recognized by jazz greats, innovators. So in 1964, Wayne left the Jazz Messengers, and he's called by Miles Davis. This is kind of funny, though. When you got called by Miles Davis, you just ran. Now, being there was nothing contractually that could hold him to Art Blakey, and Art Blakey did not willingly, let want Wayne to leave. Okay, but Miles called, you left. The same way he would join this quintet that was called the Second Great Quintet of including Herbie Hancock piano, Tony Williams drum, and Ron Carter, and the reason Miles had heard about, he had been trying to get Wayne all the time from Art Blakey, and he was also interested in bringing the book. The book was all of the incredible music that Wayne Shorter had composed. And so he joins this incredible group of Tony Williams, Ron Carter, and the great Herbie Hancock. Herbie Hancock, by the way, was called the same way, but he was encouraged from Donald Byrd, just to give some background on that. Okay. But apart, he records his first album with Miles, which was called ESP on Blue Note Records. Apart from recording with Miles, Wayne also released his solo album, Speak No Evil, in 1964. Now, if there's an album you want to get, it's that album. You know what I mean? It's a must. It's a must. I can't say any more than that. Buy that album. Get it sooner than later, and I'm playing a remark you made, by the way. I don't know the music, but it gives you an idea of later on Wayne, okay? But that album, and I'm going to say it over and over again, you must get it, okay? And besides, the cover of that album is of Wayne Shorter and his wife at the time, who left him shortly. That was something that happened, and would end up marrying Billy D. Williams a couple of years later. Okay, I wouldn't say it was too far away. I'm just giving you some tidbit on that. But Billy D. Williams and Wayne Shorter lived in the same Harlem neighborhood, so I'm gonna leave that alone. Okay, I've already said it. I stepped in the wrong place. Anyway, Wayne Shorter has now contributed compositions and recorded for several of Miles Davis albums, including Nefertiti, Live at the Plug Nickel, In a Silent Way, and Bitches Brew, amongst others. Wayne continued his illustrious career after leaving Miles in 1970, and that same year co-founding the band Weather Report with pianist Joseph Zawinul, exploring fusion, Brazilian jazz, rock, and funk influences. Now, Wayne came up with the name Weather Report because he thought it was something about people spoke about every day. You always hear about, hey, what's the weather? What's the weather report? And Wayne thought this was something that people would represent the group, and they would ask about what Weather Report was, their new music, and there is something that happens every day that with music and jazz that's moving forward. And the first album was Weather Report. Second was Mysterious Traveler. Now, I know you heard that before, Mysterious Traveler, that radio show that he listened to as a child. Heavy Weather was the next. Black Market and Mr. Gone, okay, which was Wayne's nickname because he was here, but he was never there, okay? And there is there's a reason behind that, why he had that name. He had that name because they were saying a controversy was going around with Weather Report at that particular time in Wayne's stage of his career. He had just become a Buddhist, a practicing Buddhist, and he was in Buddhism, and he was trying to say, where did he stand with this new group that he created? Okay, and he was practicing, and he had a new perspective about life, and he also was trying to understand where he was dealing with this new young bassist by the name, 25 years old, by the name of Jaco Pastorius, who was also making fun of him because Wayne had gray hair and he was, he was the old guy considering to Jaco. And he was now Jaco and was now composing like Wayne did when he joined Art Blakey and Miles Davis. So this was a reversal of roles. But also Wayne was having a period where he just couldn't compose anymore, okay? And things were happening for Wayne Shorter as we continue. So, Wayne is dealing with all of this, and he's saying to himself, where do I stand with this music? And then there was an episode that happened. It just so happened that Weather Report, Jaco, Joseph Zawinul, and all of them are recording, but they recorded for 42 hours. And this was just too much for Wayne. He's like, 42 straight hours. What? This is madness. So Wayne, who still had his own career, leaves and goes to Brazil. Nobody knew that he was even in Brazil. But he was hearing people, where is Wayne? What's going on with Wayne? And he was in Brazil recording with Milton Nascimento. Okay. And when he did return, there was a tune that was presented to him by Jaco Pastorius, and it was called, Mr. Gone. And Jaco, which was one way saying Wayne contributed to this. Also, Joseph Zawinul called him Mr. Gone, saying, I don't know where Wayne is. Where is Mr. Gone? So, by all this is happening, he hears this incredible arrangement by Jaco and says, wow, this is gone. This is really, really gone. And it was slang for this. The tune was out of this world. So Wayne recorded his solo in the studio, and this also happened on the recording of Punk Jazz without anyone else in the studio. The same for Jaco. Jaco Pastorius came in and recorded his, and also Tony Williams was on drums, which even made this recording even more happening. Punk Jazz. Now, whether it's true or not, I can't tell you, but this was some of the things that the events that were happening at that time. Nevertheless, Mr. Gone was released in 1978. And the tunes was Mr. Gone, Punk Jazz, and then with Maurice White, River People, made the album worth the while, worth the wait. Now, for a young 22-year-old, I developed my jazz ear with Weather Report. Chick Corea Return to Forever, Herbie Hancock, John McLaughlin, Mahavishnu Orchestra, John Coltrane, Charlie Parker, and even listening and starting to understand Miles Davis. I also saw Weather Report, Chick Corea Return to Forever, John McLaughlin at the Palladium, but this was the Palladium on 14th Street. And it was this scene that was going on, just telling you some things personally that was going on with me. It was WRVR, the radio show that was happening, the Village Voice. For those, it was before the internet. That was our way of finding out everything that was happening musically in New York City. But in 1985, Joseph Zawinul and Wayne Shorter ended Weather Report after 15 years of recording because they had just about done everything musically, all right? And Wayne's musical career was extended into the 80s and 90s and 2000s. And he earned the title, believe it or not, the father of smooth jazz, and Kenny G thanks him. What does that mean? It meant that Wayne's sound, some people heard the part that they found most understandable, unique, was easy on the ear, and that cats could listen to and take that part to sample and run with. And that's what Kenny G did. And when he became I guess he ran away with the whole smooth jazz repetitive sound. Now, if this sounds like history repeats itself, it does, and very much reminiscent of Stan Getz with taking the sound of Lester Young, jacking it and monetizing it. Wayne's melody, as he would make this melody, he continued and flowed forward. He was not stopping there. He continued. So one part of Wayne's music became smooth jazz. So smooth jazz is, as I always said, was all Wayne, but always imitated but never duplicated. And Wayne collaborated also. He continued as we move forward and wind this up. Wayne collaborated with Steely Dan, Asia, recorded in 2 takes, Joni Mitchell, Mingus with Jaco Pastorius, Carlos Santana, and recorded several movie soundtracks such as Around Midnight. And in the 2000s, Wayne continued his creative exploration, recording albums like Allegra, Ipanema with Esperanza Spalding for a more symphonic sound. In the course of his remarkable career, Wayne Shorter won 12 Grammy Awards and was honored with the prestigious Lifetime Jazz Master Recognition. In addition to his noteworthy impact in music, he was composed an extensive catalog of 213 tunes. And Wayne Shorter believed that jazz must be ahead of the curve, saying, "I dare you." On March 2nd, 2023, Wayne took flight to the unknown, leaving behind a landscape of jazz that will be forever remembered. And I will say to you, long live the Newark Flash. And I hopefully you enjoyed this great show. I know I did, talking about Wayne Shorter, a new perspective, here on Jay Coolin Podcast and on various other platforms. You will see this. I thank you. This is Tony Bellamy on justcoolin.com, where you can also go to our website. But Jay Coolin Podcast, you can check us out and check out this new show. Have a great day and a better one tomorrow.